So, Vijay, tell us about DNI initiatives that you believe companies must do, and maybe you'll bring a little spin with the world of gaming.
Sure. I was going to actually roll off of something DK said earlier, which was around strategy, that companies need a diversity strategy. And every one of the companies that we represent here today, I think would consider themselves extraordinarily strategic, right? If you're going to be around on the index in a certain number of years, you better be strategic. It's a tough world out there. And yet when it comes to the D&I space, to echo what Ram was saying, most are not strategic, they're programmatic. And I think, a little bit of my background has sensitized me to the difference between being programmatic or strategic, because I spent so long in higher education on college campuses in doing diversity leadership work. And higher ed plays the ultimate sleight of hand game, because they're so heavily programmatic. I mean, college campuses are ripe with programming. And I'm bringing this up specifically because I'm speaking to a college campus right now, right? I think that this is something that folks at Columbia might be able to resonate with. There is like the volume of activity that could give you the sense of buzzing engagement on a college campus. You just can't find it anywhere else, right? And especially a place like Columbia, where I was at Cornell, it's just endless, right? And what happens is you get caught up in the buzzing activity, and it gets very easy to confuse that for an actual strategy that moves the needle on the core equity issues over time. And so after 20 years of being in higher education, I started to feel like I was in Groundhog Day, right? Because it was the same conversation year over year, but we were exhausted from having done so many Black History Month and LGBT Pride Month and Asian American Month and Women's Month. And it's like, yeah, but we're not actually changing the fundamental lived conditions of the people who work here or school here. So rolling down from a strategy to give a tangible example of what I'm working on right now at Zynga is we executed a global inclusion survey, which, that's no new bag of tricks there. I mean, everybody should be doing some way to get data on their workforce. I tried to bring a heavy element of social science rigor per my training and my background as an academician to the survey, so that we're able to separate out the questions from the factors and be able to use the factors that are driving the survey design to create a community or a company conversation about factors that matter. So how is fairness different than belonging, which is different than psychological safety, which is different than net promoter score? These are actually all different social science variables, and the research speaks heavily to the ways you can use these as levers to create a more inclusive ecosystem. And so after that survey, and this is the step that connects to DK's point about a strategy, is you got to take the data and weaponize it to drive strategic change over time. And so we're moving towards a scorecard model, right? So that every business unit leader, so the heads of our game studios, in the next few weeks, me and my team are meeting with them now that the survey's done and we've sussed through the data, and saying, here's your dashboard in this really beautiful, data visualization tool that we have. Compare it to Zynga overall. Look at your targets of opportunity, which is a really polite way of saying, here's the areas where your organization is demonstrating a lack of inclusivity, right? Okay, it seems like psychological safety is really lagging in your organization. Or it seems like when we disaggregated by gender, women feel far lower favorability around career navigation. So there's so many things that surface in the data. And when you meet with each business unit leader and you say, here's 2 or 3 targets, and we'd like for you to set some goals with some OKRs and KPIs, to use all the corporate language, right? And you've got 6 months. You've got the second half of the year to execute against your goals, which is exactly what you would do with the revenue strategy. And we're going to repulse this survey in Q1 of 2022. And then we meet again to see if you move the needle. This is the same thing you would do in any new go-to-market strategy for a product, a revenue strategy, all that stuff, right? We got to treat diversity the same way, and hold business unit leaders accountable to change over time. And you can't do that without the data, and you can't do that without using a mindset that's already native within the space. Like in our culture, in tech, it's all OKRs and KPIs all day long, right? So using that framework to drive a change agenda in the D&I space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that we were talking about programmatic versus strategic. It makes me think of like reactive, status quo, and proactive. Or we're going to do something, and let's move the action science, action change forward.